I have a headache right here. See it? All right. Enough about my ailments. Welcome to the Fireside. I'm excited to have you here for today's episode with my good friend Kurt Jacobsen. Kurt's been on the show before. We did a really great interview a few months back about apprenticeships or mentoring. And Kurt is back today with what I'm going to assume is going to be a 3-part podcast series, because we talked for about 3.5 hours. So I'm going to try to break it up, maybe 2, but probably 3. And it's on a really interesting topic, something that we really have never covered before, and that is the subject of competition tattooing. I'm sure if you've gone to conventions in the last few years, you've seen people that are there doing these 3-day marathon pieces specifically to compete for best of show at very high level tattoo conventions. And it's a really cool idea. It's not for everyone, but the folks who are doing it are really, really doing it well. And they're putting a lot of time and effort into it. And I just don't know a lot about that world. But as it grows, I thought I would reach out to someone who is very familiar with that world and who's deep involved in it and pick his brain and learn a little bit. So what we're going to talk about today is getting into competition tattooing, what it takes from a mindset standpoint, some practical tips, choosing the right clients who can actually sit for 3 days, planning out the piece and all of the other things that go along with it. And then in the second and third part of the series, we'll go further down the rabbit hole of how he actually gets clients to sit for 3 days, pain management and things like that. So this is a really, really informative series. Make sure you have your pencil and a piece of paper. Take some notes. Also, Kurt is a big part of our Inside Fireside Tattoo Club, and he leads our Friday drawing nights. So I'm thinking what we're going to do at the end of this, because I'm sure a lot of you guys are going to have questions or want to talk more about some of these subjects, we'll do a live drawing night for everyone. We'll open it up not just to the Inside Fireside group, but to everyone. And Kurt can answer questions, and we can do some critiques, and we'll just kind of follow up on this series, and you guys can ask any questions. So if you are not subscribed to our newsletter, to the Tattoo Tips Tuesday, you should subscribe to that so that you'll make sure to know whenever that night is actually going to happen. So this is a pretty long one, so let's go on and get into the interview. I won't waste any more time just running my mouth. We'll back up and start with, you made a conscious kind of decision and effort to start traveling and doing a lot of conventions, doing shows on a regular basis. It seems like you're doing them all the time. And then B, trying to do large scale 3-day projects, which to me is still, I know it's not new. I know people have been doing it for quite a few years now, but it's like I saw someone do it and take best of show. In fact, the first person I saw do it was at the first or second Evergreen show that I went to, and the guy's name is Brady something. You may know his last name. He's a really awesome tattooer, but he did a 3-day thigh piece just like what you do all the time. Knocked it out of the park. Blew me away that he did it in 3 days. Took best of show. We had him on the podcast, and I thought, wow, what a unique idea. I guess that I knew some of the big folks. Like I saw Rimber do it maybe before that. So people like Rimber, or maybe Nico, or here, but that was just like a dude that I didn't know that knocked it out of the park. Beat a lot of really awesome tattoos for best of show. Beat a lot of really big name tattooers for best of show as a virtual unknown, at least in my mind at that point in time. And I saw that, and I'm going to guess that was 2017, 2018. And then now, fast forward just a handful of years, I see it, I feel like a lot, and you jumped in kind of early on that. And so I guess if we can, before we get into the specifics of it, like maybe start with how that came to you. What made you decide that was something you wanted to take on? And then maybe we can start to dive into the nuts and bolts of identifying the type of client that can handle 3 days, prepping for that type of client, prepping drawings for that type of thing on short notice, all the stuff that's going to come along with that. But you can start maybe with where, like what made that sound like a good idea to you, and maybe where did you first see it?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a long road if you want to do it, and on a smaller scale, pretty much exactly what you just talked about. You see something at a show that blows your mind away, And if you're interested in doing something like that yourself, if you want to be the one to blow minds, then you kind of start walking down that path, and it's yeah, it's a long one. So like I can definitely answer like how to get clients for that for sure. But it is kind of, it's sort of built into like how you go about kind of getting there for that type of thing. So yeah, for sure. If you want, I could just like as to why I compete, or as to what got me into it, is like I said, yeah, that you see it, you want it, and you start going for it, and it can get really hard to start going for it, because exactly what you just said, you come to the realization real quick. If you want something like that, then that's what you're playing with. So the question is like, well, how would you get there, right? So if it's cool, I'll just kind of talk a little bit about like why I compete, more so than like what got me into it, because a lot of people get into things for kind of the wrong reasons, and then law of sunk costs, you roll in pretty far, and then you're like, oh man, I can't back out of this, or whatever, right? So for myself, I guess before I even talk about anything else, I guess that's kind of critical to say, is that like if you choose to try to like compete or get into competition, is like you have to know your own limits very, very, very well. Like you have to pay attention to yourself, and you have to take care of yourself at least enough that it doesn't do damage. Because like what you just said, it's what you compete with are pushing themselves so hard that it can be unsafe if you don't prepare well. So everything I say in regards to competition is assuming that somebody is doing that, right? Knowing yourself, knowing your own limits, and paying attention to your own self, mentality, and all that type of stuff. So why compete, right? Why compete, or what gets me into it, or what got me into it, or what keeps me in it? A big reason to compete in my particular experience is showing off, or exposure, and that's in a lot of different reasons, but really that is what we're all trying to do as artists, because we're a visual thing, and that's what the goal is. And the more that you show off, and the more that you expose yourself, the more opportunities for potential business and clients that you have, and the more easily and firmly you're able to call authority with whatever it is that you're interested and want to do. So showing off, right? Going out there, showing off, it's a big part of it. um, Another big reason to compete for me is that the process of involving yourself with people that are trying that hard is that you're going to amplify your art direction. You will intentionally choose your art direction more quickly and follow it more intently than you would if you were just kind of on your own, because you'll be forced into making, maybe not good decisions always, but certainly indecisions. And the faster and firmer that you make decisions, the more that your direction kind of shines through. So maybe not why I got into it, but certainly why I stay in it. It helps to amplify your own art direction. Also, another good reason is that there are a lot of really good clients who are interested in the competition scene. So like people who want to do 3-day pieces are already getting 1 or 2 or 3-day pieces. They're already looking for it and talking to the Rembers, or the guy that you mentioned at Evergreen, because they're looking at shows. And when they're looking at shows, they're looking to see who's competing and who's participating. So not only is it exposure, but it's exposure to a very targeted and specific market that, if you want, is already there for you. So competing automatically puts you in that kind of thing. And more specifically, I'll touch back on it, I'm sure, more than once, but standing in line for judging, right, that's a showcase, that's a panel, it's like an art gallery by itself to a very specific clientele that's already there doing the same thing. And they'll spend a good amount of time just looking at your work right there while you're not doing anything. Yeah. And then the other benefit, or another benefit of shows, another reason why is you, if you're if you're approachable and if you have the bandwidth enough to do it, clients get to vet you quickly and easily. So the exposure to that market, they get to come up and kind of feel you a little bit, see how you are, and especially under pressure. If they're a client who wants to commit to a 3 day piece, they want to know that a client or an artist can handle, the pressure that's involved, and guarantee them a completed, good product. So it's a little interview. You get a little interview, quickly, even if you don't recognize that it's going on. So for that reason as well, I'm consistently saying that I'm in competition, because the clients who are interested are walking around talking to you and looking, and you can always tell what they are because they'll come and ask you, oh, are you putting that in for best of show? And that's like, oh, that's a client who already knows what best of show is, and that's like a thing. And they'll come and talk to you a little bit, and you're already garnering it from that. Additionally, like I said, it amplifies your art direction, but it also like vastly increases your capabilities, not just your tool belt, but how big your tool belt can be. When you first start out, you only have space for 3 tools. Even if you get 3 really good tools, you still only have 3 tools. So you're increasing your capability by pushing your boundaries, if that makes sense. And for that reason, also, it promotes aggressive growth. And that's really kind of what's off-putting about it for a lot of people too, is that as soon as you dunk into the water, you feel how fast it's moving, and swim quick, is the thing, right? So those are the reasons that I like really keep me committed to competing, not just like what got me into it, but what keeps me going and keep wanting to do it and view it as a positive thing.
I wonder how often your clients for subsequent shows come from a convention that they happen to walk up. Like, how many people are reaching out to you uh, at your shop, or are you bringing from the Chicago area, as opposed to how many clients you're working on at a show that literally walked up to your booth at another show, at the previous show, and said, "Hey, I think I want to be in that spot." How often does that happen?
Um, it wouldn't be fair to give you like a how often, because I'm the bottleneck in that, and I prioritize people that I established in studio because they're thing. But as often as the opportunity has been provided, exactly what you're talking is there. So uh, my girl, she's not my girl, but I just say it, whatever. Rachel, she's a tremendously talented artist. Her Instagram is Pat or Tats. Rachel, she's super awesome. She lives in Indiana. She works there and she does awesome work. She saw me working on a 3 day project at Indy, not this past one, but the one before that. And that's what made her book a 3 day for Chicago that we just did this past year. You know what I'm saying? So, often, man, often, very often, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
I I wonder because I've been, we've found ourselves at the same shows before, and you are very dialed in.
Mhm.
You're wearing headphones, you're in your own world, and I wonder if that's a part of uh if part of the appeal of doing this type of work, or part of continuing this type of work, is bringing people in from that particular show. I assume there are probably a lot more people that would love to talk to you that don't get to. Do you think about that often?
So I usually, yeah, dude, 100%, right? But like I said,
Because I haven't
that's
seen you travel with an assistant or anything. If you do, it
no,
just hasn't
no.
been. Yeah.
Sometimes I do if I'm afforded the opportunity, but even then, if I have a booth helper, I'm trying to give the advantage to another artist that's traveling with me for exactly that reason. They're working, and then we can talk about them. For myself, I will always give like a quick minute, like I said, but that's it. Like a hey, how you're doing, and let you kind of approach it. But I'm already filtering out what's really interested versus what's just kind of interested. So I do a stupid thing where I just put out a little sign answering out like all the silly questions, which aren't silly. They're great questions, but they get asked quite a bit. And then if somebody has further questions, I'm giving them a second. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm super dialed in, because I'm only there. I'm not there necessarily trying to get another 3 day project. And again, part of what I'm going to talk about is how the best way to find love is to not look for love. You know what I'm saying? Is to work on yourself and let it come to you. A lot of what I'm going to talk about is setting up a good process of operation so that what comes in is just what you're ready to accept or what you're happy taking on. And you're not really at a show selling yourself. You're just showing what you've already sold, if that makes sense. So I kind of look at it differently. It's more of an exposition to me than it is like a sales pitch.
Yeah. So, something else that you mentioned, and I certainly I don't want to disrupt your flow at
No,
all. So
please,
I
yeah.
want to
It's a great
want
pause
to
time. I'll do cons right after. I got a whole
okay
cheat sheet,
list
dude.
of
I'll
cons.
stay placed. Yeah, I'll stay
Okay.
placed. Yep.
The uh, you mentioned it's the opportunity for aggressive growth, and something that I think is important about that. And I'm going to just put words in your mouth and assume that I know what you're talking about. Is that obviously you're having to cover a lot of ground very quickly, so your all of your processes need to be pretty dialed in. You have to be commit. It's like it's more important to make a decision than it is to make the perfect decision, I would assume a lot of times. And
Yes.
so I think something for beginning tattooers, which as you know is a lot of what watches our show. It I think that depends. Sorry, yeah, the new tattooers who watch our show a lot. I think something important to point out is that you can't be changing a lot of variables at once. So if you aggressive growth probably means I know A to B, B to C, and we're and the chances that I take are calculated risks, planned risk, and it's not winging it under any circumstance because there's no chance, there's no free time or opportunity to even allow that. Is that true?
Big time. Big
Yeah.
time. Yeah, big time. A big part of what I talk about is when you're building up to this, pretty much everybody wants to jump to the fun stuff for sure. But everything that I'm going to talk about is advanced only in the way that it requires a significant amount of build up to do it. I'll touch back on it later, but one of the things that I tell people as much as possible when you're first starting to compete is you're choosing to do things on people that are your best people with your best, whatever you're most comfortable with, your most comfortable palette. If it's going to take you if it's going to take you like 5 hours to do the tattoo, then you take 8 or 10 hours to do the tattoo. So you set yourself up with the absolute best chance to succeed as possible, and then train yourself to harder things. So yeah, you're totally right. It is more advanced in that way for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cons.
Yeah, cons. Cons are big too, and again, I'll touch back on it a bunch of times, but it's important to know your limits. And I guess one of the big cons is if you're not great at knowing your limits, it's going to make it hard for you to see it, or harder for you to see it. That kind of environment puts you in a lobster in a pot kind of thing. It's harder to see your environment. It's harder to hear yourself. It's harder to listen to yourself, certainly. So you need to train it long before you're in that situation. It's really hard. It's really hard. It's really hard. And not just like it's hard mentally and it's hard physically, for sure. But the mental always comes before the physical. If the mental is right, you will train your physical to be able to handle the higher load over time. If you're patient, committed, and consistent, right? A big con is just like it will amplify your art direction, it will also mega amplify your imposter syndrome. Everybody ever who would be listening to this podcast, I assume, would have imposter syndrome pretty significantly. Going out and competing is like putting a megaphone on that. It's a guarantee that your imposter syndrome is going to feel huge, much huger than it already does. And again, that's something that your mentality has to be trained for, or else you end up in another one of the cons, which is discouragement. Discouragement in its own way, whether you win or succeed, artists can feel discouragement from both. You can have like a false victor's feeling of like maybe I didn't deserve it but got it anyways, a pity win or an anything. But discouragement being the enemy, and just like amplifying your art direction, Your discouragement is just that much more vulnerable, ready, and on the surface, right? You're that much more primed and ready to lie to yourself and listen to like whatever bullshit you've had constructed to help protect yourself, if that makes sense. So your discouragement is going to be, it's high and heavy, win or lose, it doesn't matter. The result, it ends up being the same. So it is something to be very, very, very aware of, and that it will affect you no matter what. Like a feeling, how you process it is really the part that matters. So getting comfortable with being discouraged is something that you should be prepared for.
And I assume that's something that I assume that's something that happens throughout during the
Forever.
tattoo, before the tattoo.
Yep.
When you're standing in line for
Yep.
the competition and it's not quite finished, but it was the deadline to get the thing in, or
even when you nail it,
even when you
win, even when you come home with a nice trophy and you feel it doesn't matter, you still have the discouraged feelings, or should I keep going, or whatever the case may be. And champion mindset is that discouragement shouldn't affect the action, right? Whatever action was planned in should still continue forward if that's your goal. But like I said, another highlight to knowing your limits and checking in with yourself. Everybody's a little bit different. Everybody's wired a little bit different for it too, so checking in with yourself and knowing for sure. Which kind of discouragement, I'm gonna put it in with the same thing, but like loss of faith in self, I consider it a little bit different than discouragement, because discouragement is kind of like a predecessor to it. When you start losing faith in yourself, you start questioning, is my artwork worth it? And again, it's like the amplification of art direction, but in reverse. So you're starting to question, do my clients like my work? Am I good at making choices? Do I have it? Whatever the case may be. And those two things or three things will all lead to essentially unhealthy habits that you'll end up damaging yourself with. So even if you win, you end up losing. And that's obviously something that you want to avoid pretty heavy and hard. But it's not something that you can avoid. And I suppose that's why I'm saying it is, no matter who's doing it, no matter how it's going, every member, right, he'll experience the exact same thing, right? Anybody who's ever stood on that stage are going to experience in that order, essentially, oh my God, this is super hard. Oh my God, imposter syndrome. Oh my God, discouragement. Oh my God, loss of faith in self, and then unhealthy habits. Combating that is what keeps us able to keep going, because we consider the pros worth it, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So you got to address all of that.
Yeah, I'm trying to put myself a little bit in your shoes, and because I don't approach tattoos at all that way, and I've never even attempted.
Why would you? Yeah.
Right. Why would?
Why would you?
So I'm thinking about, and I'm sure through this up to now we've been posting some of your work and seeing a bit of your process, but in the off chance that we have not, you're not on a 3-day project. Most of the time, I'm just gonna say most of the time, you're like a lot of the people who are doing competition projects. You're doing outer thighs. That's a very common type of thing, but sometimes sleeves, sometimes other pieces, but a lot of outer thighs, right? And so you might work, for example, from ankle to through the calf on day 1, and then mid thigh day 2, and then hip and butt cheek on day 3. And so when you get to a stopping point, that is your stopping point. And so I can picture the discouragement and the loss of faith in myself whenever I get through day 1 and there are things about that piece that I'm not happy with. But day 2, I obviously can't touch that day 1 stuff very much, if at all. And so I'm forced to look at it while I focus on day 2 and then again on day 3. Whereas my approach, on the other hand, would be day 1, lay out the entire thing with gray wash lines and get however much shading I can get done. Go home, be very disappointed in the stuff that didn't go the way that I wanted it to. A month later, come back and fix the stuff that I'm so disappointed in and get as far as I can and be disappointed in something different. Day 3, come back and fix that. So my opportunity to correct the things that would give me self-doubt is is a lot more prevalent than your opportunity when everything is not only on a time crunch, but also you just literally can't go back into stuff. And it's not like that's a big part of it, huh?
You definitely can.
You
So my
do?
girl
Okay.
from Evergreen last year, she hates me because I promised her we wouldn't go back into the knee, and we were doing inner thigh for a 3 day piece, and I went back into the
Ugh.
knee all
Ugh.
3 days for at least 2 hours each
Oh
day.
wow.
Yeah, so you
Oh wow.
can,
Okay.
but it depends on how much damage you're causing to the skin for sure. They
Right.
don't want it, you don't want it. I'm not advising it, but you can absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Well, maybe we'll get into some of that, a little of that technical stuff, and I will say
correct. Yeah,
while we're
it's more
talking
in
about this,
pain
if
management. I'm
right,
sorry.
yeah,
Yeah,
more the pay member side. While we're talking about this, though, I will go on and throw out there because I'm sure I'll say in the intro and in the exit that uh that we're going to find some way to do a bit of a Q&A, even if we give someone. A lot of people know that you host our Friday night drawing nights in the Inside Fireside Club. So at the end of this, when this episode releases, we may try to do a drawing night that's free to everyone, so everyone can get a feel for how our club is, which might be a good opportunity for people to ask about some of these things that we hit on and may or may not find our ways back to. So
yeah. There's a lot here. It's super specific, and I'm more than happy to answer questions to pretty much anybody, if nothing else, just because as I try to explain things, I start to understand things better. So like I'm always happy to try to reverse engineer something and figure out exactly why I do something. But yes, what you're talking about as far as like I literally have in my up here workflow plan is number 9 in pain management. So we'll hit on it when we get onto that, but it's number 9 on that side, and we haven't even gotten into any of the points over here on the
it's
competition side. So
it's funny because pain management was the conversation that we started on some drawing night recently that prompted this
yeah, I think
entire
it was
podcast.
Bactine usage, yeah, and
Bactine,
how
and
to
I
use
and I
it.
I think that you've convinced me, and I know we'll get into this later. But I think you've convinced me that I overuse it, and I
You do.
actually, yeah, I think that I actually, because my most regular clients don't respond to it the way that they used to, and so I'm changing my approach based on your advice. I've done it for a couple of weeks now, so I'm excited to see what happens over time. But okay, let's jump back in. So
Hey, I do want to take a minute in this episode to thank today's sponsor, which is me, us, the Fireside Tattoo Network. Did you know that we have courses, memberships, and a lot of other free tools to help you become a better tattooer? Today, I'd like to spotlight our Fireside Foundations course. Fireside Foundations introduces the Fireside method of tattoo design, where basically over the years of working with painters and illustrators and other fine artists, I've adapted a specific kind of set of principles that I think relate the most to tattooing, and I've laid them out in an order of importance, from shapes to values to edges to colors, and we address tattoos, we build tattoos in that way. So this is kind of our beginner's course. It's perfect for people who either don't have an art background, maybe they're just starting to tattoo, maybe an apprentice or a 2 to 3 year tattooer, maybe even someone who's just trying to build a drawing portfolio to get an apprenticeship. This course is perfect for that particular artist at that point in their career. If you'd like to learn more, I'll drop a card in right here, and I'll also put a link in the video description so that you can learn a little more about Foundations. It's priced for apprentices and for young tattooers. It's very affordable. It's an entry-level product that I guarantee will change the way that you think about tattoo design. It'll help you to develop your own kind of unique mark making, which we talk about so much on this channel. So click one of the links, either the card or the link in the description below, to learn more about Fireside Foundations.
Like not really a pro, but an added bonus to competing, in my particular opinion, is if you choose to get into competition, you have um, like opportunities to network with your peers while judging is happening, and that's exposure to them, which can be many other opportunities, but same for them in reverse. So what I like to tell people or artists is that when you walk up, all of those other artists are feeling exactly the same thing. So they want another artist to come up and tell them how awesome their piece was. And so if you feel it, say it. And that's how you network positively and start getting like good relationships built from it that are going to be helpful to each other, and that will ultimately help you to look out for unhealthy habits better. So it's a friendship and networking thing aside from your exposure as an added bonus. And then also as an added bonus, if you have the courage to do so post judging, A lot of times you can get critiques from the judges themselves. Now, if and when you do this, your language is super important, super crazy important, because judges are flooded with people's hurt feelings because it is so subjective. So your language should always sound in a helpful way. For example, thank you so much for taking the time to look at my work. Is there anything that would help strengthen this so that next time when I show you, you're a little bit more impressed? Thank you so much for taking the time. Anything that appreciates them looking at it, doesn't feel like a tacky, and still helps them feel comfortable in giving you something negative. Basically, what you're trying to do is say, I'm okay with you hurting my feelings a little bit, but you have to mean it when you say it. If you do that, you will get very, very, very helpful advice. Yeah. So that's a benefit that I do that. But again, it's very hard mentally. Going and doing that sounds simple, but it's very difficult. Just like anything else, my advice would be to practice it, and practice it on a more manageable scale before you work up to a stranger judge that you don't know. Somebody that you might respect a little bit as an artist, you can pop into their DMs and ask. A lot of people have subscription services that give you available to get your work critiqued. Start in a smaller group that you're a little bit more comfortable with it, but ultimately get comfortable being critiqued. And especially if you're interested in competition from the judges who just looked at your work in comparison to everybody else's work. So
Yeah.
it's like the most valuable improvement advice you can get.
Good.
Cool.
Great point. Yeah. Yeah. Start with our group because Kurt and I both critique in the
I
Insight
do
Fireside Club.
critique, and actually, Jay critiques me all the time. For that exact reason, I'm consistently looking for, even though it's super hard, I am consistently looking for people who know more than me or have more experience or even different experience, even less experience and a
Yeah.
different perspective
And
that will
and
help me to get more knowledge. How are you?
yeah, and just a different eye. Sometimes it doesn't matter. It's amazing how often my wife solves my problems
Yep.
walking past my iPad. She can't draw. It's amazing how often she solves my problems. Right? I just go like, oh
Fresh
shit, I
eyes.
wasn't
Yeah.
looking. Yeah, I wasn't looking at that. So, and I think that happens to us in our critique nights a lot, where it's just like and we pull the thing up on Photoshop, and everyone except for the person who put it in there recognizes something immediately. And then the
Yep.
more we talk, the more it kind of peels back, and we start to dig into other things. But it's funny how often that happens. Yeah, that's a great point with competition and with judging and judging. I'll say is difficult. I find myself judging a lot. One, because I podcast at conventions, and so I'm not tattooing, so the organizers feel like, hey, I can grab Jake and he's
Oh
free
yeah.
to get on stage. So I find myself in there a lot for that reason. And and anytime anyone is disappointed and not winning or not placing or whatever, I always I try to help. But the thing I think that is important to remember is, depending on the category that you're in, best of show is a little different. But depending on the category that you're in, there might be 35 pieces there. That's like, and you're just like nitpicking the best pieces. And unfortunately, a lot of times, whenever you're down to like 7 pieces that could all win, whoever has the strongest opinion of the 3 judges kind of wins out. And everyone else is like, yeah, that was good. I'm with you. We'll do it. So, like that's it's shitty to say that, because everyone puts in a lot of work and they want the judges to put in the same amount of work. But really, it's like you're grasping at straws trying to find differences in the best work these days. So,
Yep.
yeah.
And as hard as that is to process, especially when you're up there, it's not actually a bad thing, because if there's that much that's trying that hard, again, if you can get past all the discouragement and all the rest of that, it's everybody is getting better all the time. And if I asked you, do you want to be part of a community of like-minded people who try their hardest to get better every day? Most people would say yes, but be hesitant to really sink into that because the cost is high. So, advice. We're a quarter of the way through my first page. Advice, and we're 38. Yeah. So I told you, if I'm going too long, shut me up. I'm happy to knock off any of these for sure. So my advice for anybody who is looking to compete, again, please know your limits and take care of yourself first. Please know your limits and take care of yourself first, right? Oxygen mask type of stuff. this, if anybody has ever seen the movie Whiplash, it's a great example of what the dedication to play these types of games actually is like. It's like, watch that movie. It's a fantastic movie, but it hurts. And that's the point, right? So first know your limits, then take care of yourself. My advice: clients feel hesitation, whether they're in the shop or anywhere. It doesn't matter if you talk at a bar or if you're talking about art theory or if they're asking a question or if they don't, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Clients feel your hesitation. And so when you're out competing, aiming for a 1 day or a tattoo of the day or a best of show, whatever it is, full commitment, full fucking commitment to whatever it is. If you're not fully committed, it's because you haven't planned well enough, and you should back your process up. Whatever step happened in there that skipped, it should be backed up so that you can fully commit. Whatever it is that you're doing, fully 100% commit to it. Even when you fail, if you keep doing it, it makes it almost a guarantee eventually you'll succeed. Clients can feel your hesitation. Make sure they don't feel it. Okay. Second point, which tangents onto that, is excitement, right? And the same that the client needs to not feel your hesitation, they need to feel your excitement on a consistent basis so that they can be reassured of your commitment. It's hard, especially when you're exhausting so much energy into something else. There's a million different ways to prep the field for that, but no matter what, the client needs to feel your commitment and they need to feel your excitement. I'm excited about the project. I'm excited about competing. I'm excited about losing, right? Because who cares, right? It doesn't matter. I'm excited to do this with you, and that's what it's all about. Yeah. So to
Do
me,
you have
oh, go. Yeah.
go, do you have some and you may get into this later, but as far as showing, confidence and excitement and things like that to your client, do you have touch points with each client? Because you're traveling to a place that's not your studio. Maybe your consultation was through a phone call or a video call or whatever else. Do you have touch points along the way that so you're
No, it's
keeping them
really
excited, or
it's
it's just
it's one touch point and it does it itself, right? The fact that I spent a couple of days laying out all of this information about competition is why, because I'm passionate about competing, because it makes me try harder so I get better. Because of that, that's the sell point, that's the touch point. I'm just super crazy clear about it and I re-emphasize it with that context. If I have a little manic moment where I'm just wooing at people or some shit, that client interprets that as my enthusiasm for the environment we're in and them sitting in my chair, the project that we're working on, and whatever the case may be. So the one touch point is to set the context really hard by committing really hard. It's one touch point, just commit. Yeah.
yeah, okay, all right, yeah,
Does it make sense? Yeah.
sure, yeah, yeah,
It might not
okay.
work for everybody, but it's absolutely what I found to be the best thing to perpetuate, right? Like a kind of a dress for the job that you want, not the job that you had, right? If you're excited to be there, then you don't have to explain anything further to the client. They're like, all right, fucking cool. I can just worry about me. They're good, and they want that too. Yeah. Um, Another piece of advice, pretty important, is to put your client in judging lines, right? That's not just tattoo of the day, fresh or healed. That is, or I should say, not just tattoo of the day, best of show, also healed. If you have any shows local to you or whatever the case may be, put your clients in those lines, because same as anything else, you have potential future clients all around bored for hours at a time with a screen that they can't really scroll past. Now, yeah, everybody's face is down in their phone and doing whatever, but a lot of clients come from staring at my work for a fucking hour and a half while they're waiting to get judged. And they're like, man, I just kept looking at it. And the more I looked at it, the more I liked it. And can you fucking do something for me? No problem, man. I got it. So as much as you can, and with as much courage you can, put clients into judging lines. Again, it's hard, just like it's hard to get a client to come back for healed photos or anything like that. It's all a built-in system. So the clients that are willing to go do that already know that I'm committed to competing and that it's a whole thing. I build out incentive programs. So if you take an award, you get credit for a fucking tattoo, and it's a significant credit. If you show up and compete, you get a credit. It's not as significant, but it's something. And if you go to 3 shows, hey, it makes it easier to start spending for a project that you want. So incentivizing it is also a good thing. But no matter what you do, get your clients in line, because that's your best clientele standing right there.
Huh. Can you spend a minute on that process of how that works, of incentivizing the clients to compete?
Sure. So again, it starts with the foundation, right? Every client, not every client, but almost at this point, almost every client that walks in my door knows that I'm interested in competing and that I'm interested in trophy chasing. As stupid and arrogant as it sounds, what that means to them is that I am going to do a piece that I'm going to try to get an award with. And because of that, they already want to show up just to see if they fucking can do it. If you add on a credit to come back and see me for your next tattoo and make it that much cheaper, and super that much cheaper if you win something, it sells itself. Go on a weekend with your hubby, grab a beer, walk around, look at very interesting people watch for a while, and fucking maybe get some credit. People love to do it, but it's sold from the first moment of coming in. Hey, this piece is awesome enough to go get an award. Sells itself,
Great
man.
idea. And who doesn't want to show off their,
Who
their
doesn't? That's why we
tattoo?
get the tattoos. Another point that I have in here is client celebrity for a day. Sometimes people want to get a tattoo, especially a big show-stopping tattoo, literally because you feel like like a celebrity trying to take a piss and the paparazzi's all over you. You can't do anything without 8 people stopping you just taking a
Yeah,
piss. And that's a really good feeling.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that one. That's great. I'm putting a star by that note. I love that. I haven't heard that before. This
Ooh, I get a
was
star.
credited for.
I am
Yeah.
hoping to say a couple of things that you've never heard before, Joey. I'm
I'm
really
sure.
trying to impress you hard.
You always say stuff I haven't heard. You've taught me so much. All right.
I try really hard. Well, because I think so much, and because I break it down. There is an analogy that I came up with. I'll get to it later, but it says it pretty well. Anyways, trophies, right? Trophies. These are my favorites. Best of shows and fucking the good stuff. And to me, what it is to me personally, it is a testament to how committed I am or how dedicated I am. So it's basically like an accountability wall for me. I get to look at it and have proof of result. You've been working super hard, stay working super hard, and you can get results that you want. To a client, what this is starter conversations. People don't think about that, but the client who knows nothing about competing might love the feeling of being glorified over on stage, and they look and they say, trophies, do they give trophies for tattoos? And I'm like, coincidentally, they do, and I compete for them all the time. Would you be interested? Hell yeah. Well, dude, I'm looking for 3-day product. 3 fucking days? Oh man, I don't know. And you can upsell from that point. Now, it doesn't work all the time, but it's a continued point of interest and a conversation that I don't need to start. It's already started. So
Yeah.
to me, trophies are selling before I even open my mouth. Make
Yeah.
sense? Obviously, they're
It's
hard
so
to get.
funny, but yeah,
Go ahead.
it's so funny because of how many stellar artists that I know who've won a lot of trophies, who keep them stacked on a shelf. It looks like books, like you can't even see them. Their clients can't see them. Um,
It's
I'll call Andy Chambers out on this because he has walls of trophies that are like hidden.
Of course he
That
does.
he, yeah, then
It was, dude, to touch on that, it was really hard for me to choose this as a background because it feels too much like showing off, you know? So the people who are this dedicated, I don't want anybody to feel like I'm better than them because I dedicate more time than this, but it can so easily feel that way. You know what I'm saying? And that's why people don't want to display trophies. But the problem is, I'm not selling to other artists' egos. I'm selling to clients who want to know that I give a fuck, and nothing says I give a fuck more than you spent time and energy and somebody awarded you for that. That's all it is. It's just an exchange of energy that you can look at and see. It's trust on a wall. Yeah. All right. We talked a little bit about excitement, right? And we've talked a little bit about trust. I'm going to talk about passion, which sounds like excitement, and it is, but passion is long-term excitement. Passion is excitement that you can hold for a long time. And what it does is it amplifies trust. If you are passionate about something, then it is a guaranteed to amplify somebody's trust in you for that thing. Because why would you spend that much time dedicated to something that you don't give a fuck about? It just doesn't happen very often. So, aside from excitement, passion is sustainable excitement, and its intent is to amplify trust. So make sure that you're passionate. If competing is not a passion for you, don't do it. If you know what I'm saying, whatever it is, it has to come from a place of passion, or else it might not carry over. So that's a piece of advice I'll share. Absolutely. Another piece of advice for sure that's critical is to start small and build up. A lot of people want to jump ahead, and starting small, again, knowing your limits is absolutely fucking critical. I'll get started in the section that kind of walks through how I started and how I got to where I'm at. So I'll save that for another minute. When you're competing or when you're doing anything, really keep consistency in mind. So aside from like start small, build up, it's not just start small, it has to be sustainably small. So consistency is more important than anything else. Small would be whatever you can handle consistently, not just whatever you can handle. Make sense? And then my last piece, well, there's not my last piece of advice, but the last little quick nugget of advice is to pace and plan. So you should always divide your work and your tasks, no matter what it is, into manageable chunks, which sounds simple, but it takes training to know what that looks like. How much time does things take you? So you have to get a good base for how much time things take you, and then start to be able to divide tasks. And if you can't plan and divide a task, then you shouldn't be tackling competition, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah. And that I assume starts, that's not just the tattooing process, that is
All parts, yeah.
all parts of
All
the process.
parts, man.
Yeah.
All parts. Because it really, if you take too long in design work, it can fuck with the rest of your flow, or it can lead into discouragement. If you accidentally succeed, you won't understand that you accidentally succeeded, and you'll be super discouraged on the other. So whatever it is, it has to be consistent and repeatable, or else it's not worth fucking around with. It'll be way too hard for you, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
We, you know how we talk a lot in our critique nights and in our drawing nights about if we're helping, someone to solve a problem. I find myself a lot of the time saying, like, I was just thinking of this past critique night when I was talking about the solution of, like, if things feel like they're like too much the same or too different or haphazard, then I'll find the axis that different things stand on, and I'll try to, like, find a way to either repeat an axis, like if things facing this way, I'll face this way, or I'll slightly fan it and slightly fan it. And I find myself saying that a lot. And then when we get off the calls, I go like, I said that like it's a fact, like everyone should do it. And that's not at all what it is. And I think it's the same thing that you're saying. It's like, you have to be able to, like, chunk things out, trust your own solutions, that they're the best solutions for you right now. It's not that you'll never change them forever, but it's like, this is what I'm going to do right now because I know I need to get to the next step because I'm as far as I can go here.
yeah,
I know this will get me there. So I'll do this thing that I've done 100 other times. I know that it gets me to the next step. And then one day, whenever I'm playing around, I'm doing free drawing, I'm looking at other people's work, I'm mimicking things, I'm trying to, like, bring in new tools. Maybe we'll play with that a little more. But right now, this is the way to get from A to B.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Yes.
You do.
It
You
has
do
to
the same
be.
thing a lot.
Yeah, because it has to
Yeah.
be, it has to be repeatable. So it has to be at a guaranteed I can produce it all the time. And then your growth is just, it's just how far slightly outside of that are you going? Like a tank wheel. You're not taking a catapult leap forward, you're just inching a little bit forward on a little bit farther, a little bit more of a chance on something that you can predictably do. If you don't, I'm not saying you have to do it that way, but what you run the risk of is imploding all of your trust with your clientele and, more importantly, with yourself. If you fucking flop real hard because you're trying to jump too fast, there's no chance you'll want to come back to it, and you'll discard all the potential benefits from it. Again, not saying that you should, because just because there's benefits from this doesn't mean that there's not all of these benefits somewhere else. There are. This is just a really quick, man, it's a really good way to do it. It's like door to door selling in an airport. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, onto the next little section. I'm almost halfway through the page, dude. Almost halfway through the page. I told you. Um, Something that people don't pay attention to, or I hear a lot of conflicting opinions on it, and a lot of times, especially with how divisive we are as people, not like in this country, just as humans, right? We're very polarizing because we have to be part of a community, and a community excludes other people. So no matter what, we're all just super polarizing. So some shows are like invite only, and they're like higher caliber artists, higher quality, they're really hard to get into. And some are like common feeder shows that are more for just people generally interested in tattooing, and they'll essentially give a booth to any artist that wants to pay money to be there, right? I hear artists talking bullshit about each different one, and I love different aspects about both of them, right? And especially for the audience that you're targeting, a feeder show that you can get into no matter what is a perfect place to start. It would be impossible to wait until you're amazing to try to get into a fucking awesome show, and then only, you know what I'm saying? So again, start small. Start with a show that you can get into and keep it like on a manageable level at first. It seems obvious, but some people hesitate to do it. I don't think that there's anything wrong with starting at a show that's not as like, not as, particular about who goes there, right? Because most like elite shows, they're not elite because they're better than anybody, it's because there's a limited available booths. And if you only have 5 friends in your phone list, right, you have to select the top 5 friends. You just have to. And for the same reason, invite shows and elite shows are just harder to get into for that reason. But that doesn't mean that either one should be discounted or discarded. So especially if you're new and you want to start into competing, starting at a show that's easier to get into is a great way to do it. It
And
allows you to get. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say it provides the opportunity, if you are looking to get into competition, even like to your point, on a small scale. The feeder shows provide an opportunity for a small victory, which will give you the oomph that you need to do it again.
Yep.
So you could go in as a relatively new or inexperienced tattooer at a feeder show. You can finish third in small black and gray. It'll make you feel like $1 million, and you'll be that
As
much
it
more
should.
likely to put it. It should, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you'll be that much more likely to enter something again. Whereas if you go to if you happen to be able to tag along at a really high level show, put your work in, it gets no attention at all, you're probably far less likely to compete again. So,
Dude, no shit. Like Space City, Danny came down with me. I don't know if you know or not, but that was the first time he ever did a 3-day project.
oh,
I've
I
been,
didn't know that.
yeah, because he
Wow.
looked real
Okay.
comfortable about it, because
He
I've been
did. Yeah.
coaching him
Looked,
for
looked like
months,
he did it
dude.
all the time.
I
Yeah.
know. So we talk about all of this stuff on an extensive, huge basis. And if you asked him how it went, he would be talking about what you're talking about, how discouraging it was and how difficult it was for him to put that much into something that he quote got no attention for. But that's not the truth. That's just what we tell ourselves. And if you don't prep your mental space for it, then you're not going to be able to handle the pressure of it. Does that make sense? So he's eager to do it again. He's got more lined up and stuff like that. But dude, no, that was his first shot at it. Looked good,
That's
right?
awesome. He looked fit. Yeah, the
I
tattoo looked
know.
awesome, and he looked like he'd done it a
Yep.
100 times. That's great.
He's an amazing artist, man. Danny Rojas. I gotta plug my people. I'm sorry. Dot R _tattoos artist that works for me. He's fucking incredible for sure.
We'll link to everybody
Thank
on
you.
the
Yeah,
deep dive
awesome.
page for sure. I had along those lines, and I just want to do a quick little caveat on feeder shows or big shows. I was recently, although I've known of Jake and Jess who did the Explorer Conference forever, and now they're doing a lot of shows throughout in mid-major kind of towns throughout the U.S. And I just got to know them because they did one here in Memphis, and an approach that they took that I thought was pretty interesting, and I don't know that it's unique, but it's the first that I'd heard of it, was they brought in high-level people because they know a lot of high-level people. They run the Explorer Conference, so they've had all the highest level people doing seminars for years.
Ooh.
And they brought high-level people to Memphis, which I was really excited to see. But every artist that first off, they individually went to every single shop in Memphis, walked in, the two of them, and introduced themselves and said that they're doing a show. Anyone that lives in Memphis that wanted a booth got a booth. No hesitation. I mean, if you live here, you want a tattoo at the show, you're more than welcome to. It's your city. So I loved that. And then it was this blend of, the highest level kind of people with people that have been tattooing a year and a half or 2 years at street shops in the hood in Memphis, which Memphis, if you've been here, is a lot of hood, it's a lot of, it's a lot of rough areas, but there are a lot of shops here with a lot of up and coming promising people. And I was judging on day one, and a little black and gray kitty cat that was very stylized took third. That's why I just mentioned that in small black and gray. The young lady who got third place had tears in her eyes whenever I passed her booth the next day.
Yes.
She's been tattooing like 14 months. Took third place in best small black and gray.
Yes.
Knew all three of us who judged.
Yes.
Knew the judges, follows us all, and was so stoked that we liked her tattoo.
Yes.
And you could tell it just made so that I thought that was such a unique kind of blend of skill sets, as far as the show itself, and then that lent to the opportunity for her to get her work in front of me and the other, and Kelly and Dave Tevenall, and then she won, and then she takes third, and she couldn't have been more excited. So.
Well, because
cool.
why wouldn't you be, right? Like, why? To me, passion, everything, and it's like, as long as you're not seeking it for validation, it's still, you love the validation, because why wouldn't you? It's okay to get validated, as long as it's not your only source. But like, fuck yeah to her, absolutely, dude. Yeah. And also send me show details, because I want to attend that. I love that mix, I love that. Yeah, send me that. Yeah.
I will. You should definitely do the Memphis show next year. They've already committed.
I'll come and visit you. Yes.
Sweet. Perfect.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Go ahead.
Next topic. If you're competing, another little thingy, right? No matter what the judging results, it doesn't matter. I'm guilty of it because a lot of times I'm exhausted and I just head home. I'm stupid, but it's very important. There are a couple of things that should happen no matter what the judging result is. If you're competing, if you're serious about it, and if you want to get better at it. Number one, your client is and should be being looked at by other potential clients as much as possible. So you encourage and you talk to your client about making sure that they know when somebody stops them to look, that they give them the time, they give them the attention, right? Because again, it's just a communication issue about what the focus and what the priority is. So no matter what, the client should be should be getting looked at by other potential clients that are looking to come up and do this as well. Okay. There is always, no matter what, an opportunity for peer review and networking as well. that can look a little different for every person. But like my advice, not just the judges, but also your fellow competitors, if everybody's standing there waiting to hear the results, you walk up to the client whose artwork you love, you ask them who the artist was, they point to the fucking crowd, you go over and talk to that artist, and you have the opportunity to get a critique on your work, a review, a connection, say something about what you just liked, whatever it is. That's how you do that. But the opportunity is always there. Like we specified earlier, the opportunity for a review or a critique from the judge is always there and should always happen as much as possible, so you can know what you should strengthen up or what you should pay attention to. It will ultimately mean less work for you later, because you're going to do the homework no matter what. If you're the person interested in competing, you're doing the homework. This helps you to decide exactly what subject and exactly on what page of what book should I be studying. That's why you get a judge critique. You also have, most importantly, the opportunity for your client to feel like a fucking champion. Exactly like what you just said. The artist is super excited to win that trophy, but the client, they are fucking blown away too. And it is the biggest opportunity for your client to feel like they're Taylor Swift or like they're on a stage. And for them, this is another selling point, is they don't have to put in any other work other than mental determination, a nap, and some TV time. And at the end of it, I get to feel like fucking Taylor Swift. You know what I'm saying? That's a huge sell point. So this is an opportunity for your client to feel like a fucking champion. That means you, the artist, got to be loud about that, man. You got to be loud about that, and often. You're their biggest hype man and cheerleader through the whole process, but especially on closing it out. Cool. All right. I'm going to move on. Just quit unless you have questions.
I think, yeah, I something that I've always done as far as praising the client, especially on big projects like that, and you may have noticed it on the times that I've come up to your booth when you're doing 3-day projects. I immediately go to the client, tell them how great it looks, ask them how they're feeling. You know, I communicate. I always communicate with the client before I communicate with the artist during the tattoo process. But I think for that same reason, I think it's so important to like amp the client up, particularly on midday 2. You're barely halfway through. You think that you're like, I don't know if I'm going to make it. They're looking miserable. Yeah, I think there's so much to be said for amping up the client throughout the process.
Dude, and you're right. But there's something that I want to point out that's hypercritical, because everybody will do what you just did. They'll walk around, they'll be like, damn, that piece is gorgeous. How are you doing? You doing okay? Everything right? So everybody will do what you just did. But every client, it's like when your mom asks if you're okay, they want the artist to fucking check in, to ask, to hype them. So like what you do is super important, but I want to make sure it's emphasized. You, the artist, you're the only voice that matters to them. That client wants you to think that they're cool. You know what I'm saying? No matter what. So don't rely on like I don't mean to disregard what you just said. I'm sorry,
No,
Jake.
it's a good point. It's a good point. Yeah.
Because it sounds like I'm kind of being like, yeah, brush off, fuck that, it doesn't matter. It does. It absolutely does. But it's hypercritical to understand the only voice that they care about, that client cares about, is yours and the artist. And if you have to make them feel like you think that they're cool, like you have to, man. And you do, because they are. You know what I'm saying? You can't pretend any of this shit. It goes back to passion. If you're not passionate, then you'll try to fake this. It doesn't work out. I'm hyping my client up because I really feel that way. I'm like, how the fuck are you still? I'm checking in with you because I really do like care that much, because I am that invested and that passionate about it. But like I said, just hypercritical to mention that the most important voice in the room is the artist doing it to the client. Yeah, to the client. Like it has the most impact, and especially for mentality, we're talking about battery, right? Which we'll get into again, pain management side. We'll get into it. Yeah. I'm going to talk real quick about how I started, and then I'm going to run through my step-by-step process. Please understand, this is what I'm discussing is 7 years of process. So this is going to sound like you could just kind of, but it is 7 years of consistent and dedicated effort And about 5 years ago, what I chose, maybe about 4 solid years ago, I chose to do is treat every day like it's a competition. So it started with me trying to really get a good grasp on how efficient I could be, therefore, how much I could complete in how much time without sacrificing quality or longevity. Does that make sense? So, what I'm going to talk about is a 7 year process. Please understand it. If you look to get into it, it's 7 years. It's for me, and I'm pretty aggressive as far as things go. So, I started by entering a tattoo of the day competition in Incan, Lincoln, before Villain Arts was like even a thing. It was in the Rosemont Hotel downstairs, fucking Chicago. It was the Chicago show before it was the Chicago show. It was awesome and dirty and terrible and wonderful. And I entered tattoo of the day, and I got interest because I've always chosen not to use reference in my drawing. I try to be very unique and to my own personality in my decision making. So I got a lot of interest, but it wasn't good because I was a young tattooer and far too enthusiastic. I bit off way more than I could chew. And at the time, I did not have enough courage to ask for a critique or anything like that. And so what I did instead was I went home with hurt feelings, and I formulated what I considered to be like a master plan of how to make a bulletproof tattoo that couldn't lose. Tattoo of the day at a certain point was my objective, right? So it starts with practicing tattooing in its very nuanced level, specific techniques, and more importantly, timing. Like I said, finding out how efficiently you make decisions, which means you need to make the same decisions all the time. You need to do things in the same way all the time and get a feel for how long it takes you to do and how well you can do it, and then how well it settles in comparison to fresh, right? So it takes a bit even just to figure that out. Step number two, once you have that pretty well dialed in, you plan a tattoo of the day, right? At whatever show is local to you that you can get into. It doesn't matter, but there's strategy involved in picking that, of course. But after practicing and getting yourself comfortable with how fast and how well you can do something together, you plan a tattoo of the day and you just plan a single day. You make that piece very, very, very doable. You pick something you're comfortable with. You pick it in a place that's easy to tattoo, and you take an obnoxious amount of time to do it, almost double the amount of time that you think it's going to take. So you get yourself working really efficiently, and then you give yourself twice the amount of time that it takes. And then you plan and meter and budget by dividing your tasks how much time that takes. So each time, at each layer or each step of your process, you're giving yourself so much wiggle room, assuming that you're not dilly-dallying, that you're able to do everything but much more carefully. Does that make sense? You make sure that you're comfortable with your client, that they're a client who sits well and is on board with what your plan is. And again, you only choose to do like a 1 day. That's it, right? You over communicate everything with this client, and you let yourself be rested and well prepared for that one tattoo. The whole weekend is about one tattoo. Like I said, no matter what the results of judging are, you run through that process. Your client is being looked at by others. The opportunity for peer review and network, opportunity for judge review and critique. Even if you win, opportunity for your client to feel like a champion, and then you rinse and repeat. So the next step would be to extend it to 2 days, to doing tattoo of the day on 2 days instead of just one. And I usually recommend, if you're working towards bigger projects, to split that up. So you start by doing tattoo of the day on Friday when you're doing one. And then when you're trying to aim for two, do Friday and Sunday. So it gives you a recoup breather in the middle, enough to reset yourself and give yourself a chance. The available time is different for Friday and Sunday, so pay attention to that. But start building yourself up to 2 days and give yourself a breather in between. Then you practice and you repeat, and anything that you learned within that process, you transfer into your home studio and you enroll studio clients. When you come home from a show and you've done this tattoo of the day, I don't care if you won or lost or whatever the case may be, you're documenting every part of it. You're building enthusiasm and excitement around your existing passion, and you're making it known to everybody in your studio in preparation for the following year. A tattoo competition is like a final exam. You prepare all year long, you practice all year long. That's your final exam. And just like everything else, you get graded by a peer review and a judging review if you have the courage to do it. Make sense? Important highlight here, super important highlight here. Save your best clients and your best projects for the show for next year. If somebody comes in talking to you about a show and it's the weekend after you just did a show, try to convince them, talk them into coming next year. And it gives you that much more time to be prepared, and you save your very best for the exposition time, for when you're really excited to show what you do. Does it make sense? Don't scramble last second for whatever happens, you know? I mean, you can, but like if you have the opportunity in studio, start enrolling it and save your best for last, right? The next step, there's two options, and each one works equally well. It doesn't matter. So the 1A would be to combine those two tattoo of the days and do them back to back. So take Friday off to mingle and then do a tattoo back to back, one project, Saturday, Sunday, so you can start get used to what it costs and what it takes to work on a piece or a part the next day, right? It's a whole other mental game, and getting used to it or prepared to it on a 2-day is easier than just jumping straight into a fuck all. I said Danny's first 3-day piece was Space City, but he had done a 2-day piece before. He's working this system just like what I talked about. And it's always a leap, but it's better to leap one step than it is 4 steps, if that makes sense. Yeah. Or the other way to do it is to do you like to work into 3 days, but 3 separate projects. Ultimately, it's going to end up feeling pretty similar at a point, whether it's 3 days on one project or 3 days, 3 separate projects. There's a trade-off in it, but ultimately it will feel similar-ish in like energy output and stuff like that. So one of those 2 ways is a way that you can kind of jump in and start progressing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me jump in for 1 second for people who may not understand what a 2-day or maybe even a 3-day project
Sure.
looks like, even though we hit on it a little bit earlier. But if you're going to work, say on Friday, take Saturday off and do it again on Sunday, and this is on the same client, what you're doing is
no, those would be
continuing
separate. No, those would be separate. What I was
Okay,
talking about, they'd be
gotcha.
separate
Okay.
pieces, because you don't want to get into back-to-backs until you're able to handle the mental load of 2 separate things on 2 days. So no, the building 1 to 2-day tattoo of the day, they are separate pieces. So Friday, 1 tattoo of the day, yeah, then a break, and then a separate project tattoo of the day on Sunday. To me, I've found that like that's what I did to start building myself towards how much load can I handle, right? If I just go to a gym and try to lift 800 pounds, things will happen, you know? So it's like my way to figure out what can I handle and what do I need to work on so that I can handle it. So yeah, first go 1 day, 1 project, then go 2 days with a day in between, but separate projects. And then either once you're comfortable and like set with that and that feels like doable, then you can move on to either combining those 2 days into a single project and doing them back to back days instead of a day between, or you can do 3 days but 3 separate projects. The benefit there is that you could kind of moderate how intense each project is. Like maybe one of your tattoo of the days is like a 4-hour tattoo. You're going to take 7 hours to do it. Maybe on Saturday, it's like a 6-hour tattoo, but you're going to take 10 or 11 hours to do it, you know? So they're different loads and different bandwidth, but you get used to like keeping working through when it's difficult.
Yeah. Okay. And then, and of course, you're testing yourself before you're
Yes.
testing a single client multiple
Yes.
days, which is a huge part of
Yes.
that. Yeah, and that might have been clear. I just was already in
No,
the
no, no.
mindset
Ask it, dude. Just
of
got to make sure.
multiple days. So yeah, that may have been clear to everyone except for me. But yeah, and then you mentioned earlier looking at times. If you're doing a Friday and a Sunday, Sunday is obviously normally the shorter day. Saturday is always the longest day. So you. But the flip side of that is if you're entering tattoo of the day,
Most time
best of
available.
show is different. Yeah. Usually, in my experience, judging, Saturday often is the most competitive tattoo of the day. Friday and Sunday are less competitive. So,
Correct. Which is why I say,
yeah.
especially when you're starting out, Friday and Sunday,
Right.
aside from giving you a space in between, it gives
Right.
you some breathing room, right? And giving
Yeah.
yourself a little bit of grace, but not too much grace, is the whole catch. It's the whole trick. You want to make it harder for yourself always, but not impossible. And that's tough. It is tough. The last thing I'll say, unless you had more,
Nope.
no. Last thing I'll say, I will reiterate one more time, know your limits, and take care of yourself. Competing is an outrageously difficult mental game, and most of us already struggle with a lot of things that are in the mental area anyways, and it is very, 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 very difficult. Just because it's not for you doesn't mean you're less than or anything like that. Just know yourself and what your limits really are. And again, this took me a really long time to be able to do any of this, right? So it's not like I just did it. It's long built up, right? So know yourself, know your limits, and take care of yourself. The last thing I'll mention, if you compete, the clients who want this, the clients who really want this, they will trust you because you're already putting in the work. You're already doing all of the things that say to them that you are going to be a successful enterprise when they decide to spend $5,000 to $9,000 in a weekend of torture agony. So the concept of like, how do you get more 3-day clients is be worth 3-day clients. Does that make sense? And it doesn't happen quickly. It happens with a very long commitment to a very well thought out plan. Because every time that you don't deliver, I have found you will fracture, even temporarily, but you will fracture trust in your potential future clients. If a client sees that you're unable to finish a 3-day or a 2-day or a whatever, then they automatically think there's a chance that will happen to them. You know, like if United reports a fucking crash tomorrow, I'm that much less likely to purchase a United ticket, regardless of the rest of the facts. So again, know your limits, right? But for the client to trust you, you've already proved it.
All right, so that's part one. We have at least one more, if not two more of these to go, and we'll dive deeper into things like pain management. We'll continue on with this conversation. Thank you to Kurt for sharing his thoughts and for prepping so much. He really put in a lot of prep for this interview and wanted to hit on specific things, and I know that that was time consuming, and I appreciate you taking the time, Kurt. Thank you guys, as always, for supporting what we do. If you're interested in the Inside Fireside Tattoo Club, Kurt and I are both in there regularly. Like I said, he leads our Friday night drawing groups. You can check that out. I'll make sure to leave a link so you can learn more about the Tattoo Club. We do a lot of fun stuff in there. Otherwise, just make sure that you're signed up for Tattoo Tips Tuesday, and that will ensure that you are notified for when the second part of this series comes out. And like I mentioned at the beginning, whenever we do a live Q&A on this topic of competition tattooing. Thank you guys for supporting what we do, and I'll see you next time.